Good morning, I'm Sarah Joy, and this is Sarah's Joyful Journey. Today I'm going to do a little bit of a vlog, not doing anything fantastically wonderful. I'm just going to be around the house, but I do want to show you what I eat in a day, and I am going to be doing one of our favorite recipes tonight, so I wanted to show you that throughout the day. But I've been up for about an hour. It's about 7 o'clock on Sunday, July 9th. I am starting with some water. This is my favorite cup, by the way. I use this all the time. It's not sponsored or anything like that, but it's a corksicle and it's fantastic. It keeps ice forever, and if you're someone like me who loves a really cold drink, this will get it cold for you, and it's got a nice metal straw. So I'm starting with some water, and then I am just going to start cleaning up the apartment because it's Sunday and I normally do that on Sundays. I just get the advantage of I'm not working today, so I get to start earlier on that. So nothing super fancy going on this morning, but that's what we got. All right, welcome back. So it's a little after 8 o'clock. I did decide to stay in bed a little bit longer after the last little clip I did. I am trying to finish a book that I've really been enjoying, and I'm towards the end. And sadly, I don't get to read it very much because school and work take priority over that. So I decided this morning, since my only homework assignment is to write a 2 to 3 page paper, which shouldn't take me too long, I figured I could stay in bed for just a little bit, drink my water, and enjoy a book. So I have done that. It's, like I said, now about 8:15, and I have cleaned up the kitchen, and I'm getting ready to make some coffee. I don't drink hot coffee very much, and I don't usually drink a whole lot of coffee. But what I do like is I occasionally, 2 or 3 times a week, like to have some cold brew. So I'm going to show you how I do that. It's just putting ingredients into a cup, but I figured, why not? You can see what I am going to start my day with, because I do kind of count this as a meal because it is things entering my body. So I'm having my first meal, I guess, here at about 8 o'clock, and then I'm going to continue on with cleaning up the rest of the apartment, and we'll go from there. All right, so I'm going to show you how I make my cold brew. I just got this mug when we did our anniversary trip. I'm so excited about it because last time we went to French Quarter on our 20th anniversary trip, we did not get to get any souvenirs. So I'm going to take my cup and I'm going to come get some ice. I should have done this part first, but I didn't. I like to fill my ice all the way up, and then my favorite cold brew is this one. It's really the only one that I've tried, but I did get another brand last night at Publix because it was on sale, so we'll see how it goes. So then I'm just gonna pour my cold brew right into my cup, almost all the way to the top. The next thing I do is I do like to put my iodine drops in there. Because it's a good way to hide them. So I usually use 2 to 3 drops, and I do try to take iodine every day if I can, but at least 3 to 4 times a week, because I know it's a nutrient that we need. And then I am going to have peppermint patty this morning. This is some sugar-free Da Vinci syrup. Again, I only do use like one of these in coffee, and I might have another sweetened type beverage, like usually a sparkling water, because I like topo, and I put a different syrup in it sometimes, but not all the time. So I don't mind, because like I said, I use just one maybe a day, and then I have some cream, and then I don't measure, I just kind of eyeball because I don't like it too sweet. So then I just pour in a tiny bit of cream. And then, since I don't have a straw, I'm going to use a butter knife, and I'm just going to stir my coffee together. I do like quite a bit of cream in my coffee, which is part of the reason why I don't drink it all the time, because if I drink it too often, cream will stall me, and it does cause inflammation for me, so I like it as a nice rare treat. And now I have my coffee, and I'm going to put on my AirPods, and I'm going to get to work knocking out the rest of the cleaning in the apartment. I'll check back with you guys a little bit later. All right, so I finished cleaning the house just a little bit ago, and I decided to sit down and just do a little bit of research for my own personal interest. I'm going to talk to you about an article that I found on my library. But first, I want to preference that I am not a doctor, a nurse, or a healthcare provider. I am just a PhD student, which means any interpretation of this article is my own interpretation. This is what I have gleaned from the research that I just read. So take that with this grain of salt. I'm sharing this just to share what I researched and how I find it impactful for my life and what I find interesting about it. So this is my opinion and my opinion only. I will link the article. Well, I don't know that I can link it, but I will give the title, who wrote it, the DOI, so that if you want to try and find the article, you'll most likely have to pay for it. You can go ahead and you can do that and you can read it for yourself, because it was a very interesting article. It definitely made me pause and think and be thankful for a few things. And it doesn't change anything for me, which is fine, but I am a big geek when it comes to health now, and anything to do with the brain. This is why I'm a psych major, and this is why I am pursuing health psychology. If we can get anything in the realm of like brain neuroscience, I want to read it. I don't understand it all, which is fine. I don't expect to understand it all, but it is something that I am passionate about and it excites me. So I do like to read it. And I realize this is a geeky thing for some people, and that's fine. But if you do like this little segment and you do want to just know what I'm learning about or what I find as I'm just goofing around and gleaning information for my future use, I'd be glad to share it with you. So what I found was an article. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you my iPad. So that's the article. I know it's flipped it backwards, but like I said, I'm going to put the title and everything in the show notes on this. So the article was entitled Prospective Increases in Depression Symptoms, Markers of Inflammation, Increase Coronary Heart Disease Risk. It's a Whitehall 2 cohort study. This was authored by Pentella et al. Et al. Means it had more than 3 authors. It's a recent study. The study was published in 2021. So it's pretty cool. So what I found from reading this and was able to glean from reading this article was that, which we already know, we all know from just everything that we've heard in the media and everything, that coronary vascular heart disease is the number 1 cause of death. And coronary heart disease is attributed to that, the majority of those deaths. They also know that coronary heart disease, or CHD, is associated with age, obesity, smoking, workplace stress, etc. This is pretty much common knowledge to us at this point in time where we sit. Workplace stress and depression are associated with low levels of information. Researchers have not yet fully understood the connection. So what this was significant to me and what I found interesting is I had never previously considered that depression and inflammation are connected in any way. So this was something that I had never heard or understood. So it was fascinating to me because, of course, we know being on keto that keto does reduce our inflammation. And we all try, or at least I try, and I know several others of you try to reduce our inflammation. So to find that there is a link, that does not mean that they are, correlation does not mean causation. I'm going to say that a lot. If there's association, it does not mean that one causes the other. They are just associated together. Again, I had this drilled into me when I started my studies. Correlation does not equal causation. You cannot say that one causes the other. That is typically not proven. They're just associated, which means they are connected somehow, and we need to try to discover why they're connected. So you'll hear me say that again, just so you know. I just want to drive that home, that I am not saying that one is driving the other. This is just for pure fun information. So, but that was interesting to find that the two are associated together, because I had never considered that they were something that was connected. And I do have a history of depression. I know a lot of that was connected to my autism and not understanding my autism. That's changed for me. My depression symptoms are less on keto. I do struggle with them from time to time. I had an episode in December, and that was just associated with my dad's death. He's been gone for 12 years. It was a year that it just hit me hard. So depression is something I am not a stranger to, and I probably will have to deal with at some point in my life. But I am not medicated for it, and I'm okay with that. And keto does help me feel overall better and happier within my mental health, so it's not a daily struggle. I know keto also helps my anxiety, but that's another topic. So they do know that workplace stress and depression are associated with low levels of inflammation, as I said again. Researchers are studying to understand how low-grade inflammation. These researchers were saying that low-grade inflammation is anywhere between 3 and 10 milligrams per liter. So it's very small amounts of inflammation from what I am interpreting. However, it is still not well understood how inflammation is linked to the development of depression symptoms and is tied to an increased risk of coronary heart disease. The aim of the study that I read was to understand what relationships were and if there were any behaviors or connections between depression and inflammation markers, and if they could observe any pathways. And they were looking for empirical evidence to support that there is a pathway between stress, inflammation, and coronary heart disease. They also wanted to understand if they could find a predictor that would lead them to better understanding if you had these symptoms, that they could predict if you would potentially have a heart attack or something like that, have a coronary heart disease episode. So that's what their purpose of the study was for. They believed that they would be able to find the evidence to support the pathway, because they said previously that there wasn't enough empirical evidence to support that there was a pathway. So they hoped to find that pathway and support it with evidence. But they didn't think that they could make a hypothesis. So that's kind of interesting, because usually when it comes to research, you want to make a hypothesis. Now, they did use a big cohort. The bigger the cohort means the more likely that you're going to be able to generalize. It doesn't mean that you will, but when you look at a research study, you want to look at bigger groups, as big as you can possibly. So sometimes you'll find studies that have got like 100 people. You find it a lot in with companies sometimes when they're trying to promote a product and they say that they have empirical evidence. You'll find that often they have very small sample sizes, and it's not a bad thing. It does give you something to look at to see, but technically, if you're a good scientist, you're going to want to go and you're going to replicate that study with larger and larger samples so that you can generalize it to a population. So you can't generalize a sample of 100 to an entire population, generally speaking. It would be not smart. All right. So the study they used is an ongoing study that began in 1985 to 1988. It's with British civil servants, and I am looking at my notes because I don't have all this memorized, of course. They used 10,308. That's a huge study. So the goal of the study was to measure job strain, depression symptomology, inflammation markers, coronary heart disease, and any covariants. So covariants are something that occur alongside. So we know a covariant of heart disease is going to be like smoking, age, obesity, BMI, etc. Those gender also plays into those. So those are covariants. What they did find, according to their results, is they did find an increase in age and BMI that influences coronary heart disease events. I'm not surprised by that. They pretty much, that's what we hear a lot. They found that job strain was not associated with coronary heart disease events, which I kind of thought was interesting because I know stress does have an impact, or at least that's what we're told. And so I assume that that is also the case. They did find, however, higher levels of depression symptoms and inflammation markers were associated with future coronary heart disease events. That was kind of surprising to me because, again, I didn't realize that there was even a connection between depression and inflammation. But again, correlation does not mean causation. It means those two don't cause them. They're just associated with it. So they could cause it, but we don't know if they cause it. So they did find that increased job strain is associated with increased depression, which I find was kind of funny because they just said job strain wasn't associated with it. But yet, if we have more job strain, we're more likely to be depressed, which means we could potentially have more inflammation, which could potentially mean that we could have more coronary heart disease. It's just interesting facts that I've gleaning from this study. Individuals who had higher levels of depression and fibrogen. Fibrogen is an inflammation marker in our blood. So it's something they were testing for. And they did find that if you had higher levels of depression symptoms and higher levels of fibrogen, it was associated with higher levels of risk of having a coronary heart event or a first coronary heart event. They did find the empirical evidence they were looking to support the pathway, which is pretty cool. And they did find that higher levels of depression is correlated with coronary heart disease. Again, correlation is not causation. So there is an association between these things. So this is something that, what can we glean and apply to our lives, or what can I glean and apply to my life? For my life, I know that one, I'm going to want to remain keto. I'm going to want to keep my inflammation in check as best as possible. I'm also going to want to keep tabs on myself and make sure that my depression symptoms, if they do return, are going to be well managed. And I'm going to do everything that I can in my power to take care of that and take care of myself. Because the lower inflammation I have, the lower the depression symptoms I have, to me, that translates that I will have less risk of coronary heart disease. Again, this is my interpretation. I am not a medical doctor. I am not a professional. I am just a student who's reading this and is interested in it and applying what I'm reading to my life. So it's just something to make you think, to see, hey, that's interesting, or I never thought of it that way. So again, I'm just sharing this just to share what I'm learning, what I'm researching, and this was fun research for me. This was just me goofing off and having access to empirical studies and peer-reviewed journal articles that once I graduate, I will not have access to unless I actually pay for the journals, which I think there'll probably be some that I will pay for because I'm going to want to keep up on certain information just because I really do enjoy this thing. I enjoyed it when I was in my undergrad, and I'm going to enjoy it when while I'm finishing up my doctorate. So I hope that you like this section. If not, let me know one way or another if you like it. Because if you like it, I'll just sit down and I'll do a little video about an article I read a week, and we can just discuss what I gleaned from that and how I think it applies and connects to my life. All right, so I am going to go and I'm going to get ready to complete my exercise because I need to do that. I didn't exercise yesterday. And then I also do need to record my regular weekly video. So you'll see this video after that video is already up. So I will check back in with you later and let you know what I actually end up eating. I still have only had my coffee, so I have not had anything else. And I also will check back in with you when I start cooking my pork belly, which I will have to start pretty soon because it's going to take 4 hours in the oven. And I'll just share that process with you and that recipe with you and how I do it and see if you guys like that. So I'll check back in with you guys in a little bit. Hello, welcome back. I just finished my workout. As you can see, I'm all sweaty and still out of breath. I did just over 2 miles. It was like 2.10 miles of mostly a run. It was a little bit of a walk in there too. I did start out as walking for about 2.5 minutes at about 3.5 to 4 miles an hour. I kind of started low and then built up to 4 miles an hour just to get my body loose and warmed up. And then I bumped the treadmill up to 4.5 miles per hour. And I ran for about a little over 3/4 of a mile straight without stopping. Lowered the treadmill back down, caught my breath, and then went back up to a run. After about a minute and a half or so, maybe of walking, that was my longest walk other than the warm up and the cool down. And then I bumped the treadmill up, started running again, got another song that came on that really pumped me up. So I kicked the treadmill up to 5.5 miles per hour. And that is the fastest that I have been able to sustain running for a short amount of time. I'm still working up to that. But I was able to get 3/4 of the song done at 5.5 miles per hour. Then I lowered the treadmill back down to about 3.5, walked for about 30 seconds to catch my breath, went back up to a run, ran for a song, slowed down, caught my breath, and then by that point my run was almost over. A really good song came on, Lose Yourself by Eminem, which pumps me up every single time. So I kicked that speed back up and I ran the last 5 minutes and then finished with a 2.5 minute cool down. So I'm gonna go get cleaned up and cooled off, and then I will come back and it's time for me to start the pork belly. So we will walk through that process of how I'm going to do the pork belly. So I'll check back in with you in a little bit. Well, I just got out of the shower and I was not feeling great. Still kind of feeling like just not well, but not bad. So I decided to check my CGM. It's been, and just for the record, it's been about 15 minutes since I stopped my run. So I'm still feeling warm and I'm still feeling the efforts of that. So I look at my CGM and my CGM definitely showed that my blood sugar went up quite a bit. It hasn't been this high in a while. I'm not worried about it because it's just high from exercising, but I got up to 157 and I was like, whoa, let's see if that's accurate. So I did go ahead and I did a finger stick check, and hopefully I can get my little meter to turn back on so I can show you that I was able to verify it. Let's see if I can get this to go. I can't. Well, I verified it with my little meter with the blood stick, and my blood sugar was 147. So I am going to get some more water and some electrolytes, and I'm going to sit down and cool all the way down. And once I cool all the way down, I'll come back and I will share how I do my Keto Burnt Ends. All right, I'm getting ready to start my Keto Burnt Ends, and I do apologize in advance. This is not going to be great because I have one tripod and one tripod only, and it's very small and it's not going to work well for this, but we're going to roll with it and do our best. So I found a recipe for Keto Burnt Ends on Pinterest, and I tried it a few weeks ago and it was delicious. I made some changes just because it used brown sugar swerve, and I don't like super sweet barbecue, so I had no intention of using that. So I used their recipe as a guide. So what I do have here is I have 2 pounds of pork belly. I have some avocado oil. I have some onion powder, some garlic powder, And then to get my barbecue type seasonings, I also am going to use some Red Rock barbecue from Redmond's. Now this does have a little bit of allulose in it, which I'm fine with. It adds just that touch of sweetness. The recipe called for, I think, a quarter cup of brown sugar swerve, and that would have just been too sweet for me. And then we don't need it right away, but towards the end of the process, we're gonna need some sugar-free barbecue sauce. So I have this G Hughes, and this is the sweet and spicy, which is my favorite one. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna open this pork belly and we're gonna get it diced up. This is a long and slow recipe. So it's going to go in the oven for 3 hours. It's a long time. I do have my oven ready to go. So I'm just gonna quickly chunk this pork belly into some big pieces and toss it into a little bowl that I've got ready to go. So they're, you know, about an inch around. I'm not being super particular. I just kind of wing everything then I cook it. My husband doesn't complain, so that's, I guess, a good thing. So we'll get that pork belly going. I am feeling a little bit better from my run now that I have finished cooling down. And I am gonna get some electrolytes here in a few minutes because I will probably need them. But it is, let's see, 1:10 and I still haven't been hungry enough to eat anything. I know this is partially because of my Monjaro, and you'll see more about the experience with that in the video that I'm going to be releasing right before this. So my standard weekly video will include that. For you, those of you who would like to know where I got this pork belly, I found this one at Walmart. It was really good. Usually we get our pork belly from Wild Fork. We enjoy Wild Fork when we can get a chance to get over there and get it. It's not super close to our house, but it's not too far either. It's about 30 minutes away. So sometimes if we're running to that side of town, we'll go to Wild Fork and just stop and see what they got and get some stuff. I like that everything's already pre-frozen, but I don't have a lot of space in my freezer because we have a very tiny space. I'm gonna wash my hands real quick and be back. I just don't like the feeling of meat and stuff on my hands. It's a sensory overload. So when I cook, I do a lot of hand washing just because like I said, I don't like the feeling of it. All right, so now I have got my pork belly in my container. It said to drizzle some olive oil over it. I have a thing of olive oil, but it's a big container, so I just grabbed avocado. Avocado is going to do really well too. I don't think it gave a measurement. It might have, but either way, I am not following it. You get a spoon. And then, so I've got my olive oil over it. I'm just gonna toss that around and make sure that gets nice and coated. And then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add some seasonings. It did give some measurements for that, but I will probably just do my own thing like I always do. So that's coated. The other thing that I have ready to go is I have a baking pan with a rack that's covered in foil. All right, so she said, the recipe said to mix all your seasonings together and then toss it over. So I'm gonna do that. I should have prepped better by getting a bowl, but I didn't. These are my favorite little bowls for seasoning or even putting a sauce in if I'm gonna dip something, which I tend not to do because I can overdo sauce, so I don't like to do that so much. But this is a fruit bowl for serving fruit. It works really well when you want to just mix up a few things. So I am going to take a teaspoon of onion powder and put that in my bowl. I'm going to also take a teaspoon of garlic. Now this recipe didn't call for any salt, but I love salt. So I am going to use some salt in this as well. I'm not gonna measure my salt. I'm just going to take my Redmond's real salt and I'm just going to put some in the bowl because we can always salt it more later. My husband doesn't do a whole lot of salt, so I sneak it in on him. And then I am going to take, I think, a tablespoon. I'm using my teaspoon, which a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons of this Red Rock barbecue seasoning. And then I will grab a fork and I'm going to mix this all together and see how it looks. I live in Florida, of course, which means because there's sweetener in my seasoning that it is going to be a little bit cakey, but we're just going to do our best to get it all mixed in together and not all over my kitchen. I'm going to go ahead and just use my fingers so I can break it out better. And if I need some other stuff, I will go ahead and get that too. The recipe did call for some chili powder, so I may grab some of that, but we'll see. It smells really good. I think I am going to grab some chili powder and maybe some cumin because I like chili powder and cumin. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a little bit of cayenne because I like a kick. I got my chili powder and then I got my cumin. So for cumin, I am not going to measure it. I'm just going to dump some in. And like I mentioned, it's my favorite seasoning, so it pretty much goes in a lot of the stuff I cook because I love it. I am also not going to measure my cayenne because I don't mind spice. I'm just going to give it a couple quick dashes. And then I will go ahead and I will add a teaspoon of the chili powder to this. And I think this is what I used last time, but like I said, I used the recipe as a guide and just kind of wing it and go from there. That's the great thing about cooking is you don't have to worry about your portions. You just can wing it. Baking, on the other hand, which I was a professional baker or cake decorator for a while, and I loved baking. So I used to bake sourdough bread. I caught my wild yeast, all that kind of stuff. So I was a pretty proficient home baker. I could do pretty much anything. So now I got my seasoning. It smells the way I want it to smell, so it should be pretty good. So I'm just going to dump that whole thing right in on top of my pork belly. So as you can see right there, I do have it in there, and then I have my spoon, and we're just going to toss everything and make sure it gets nice and well coated. This recipe is so good. We'll probably have it with some eggs tonight. We'll see. Just depends on how hungry I am. I'm still not feeling hungry, which normally by this point in the day I've typically eaten, but I'm just going to roll with it because I want to test and see how long it's going to take before my hunger returns once stopping the Manjaro. Okay. So the pork belly is nice and coated and ready to go in. So I'm just going to go ahead and we'll bring this over so it's a little bit closer to me. And then I'm just going to go ahead and toss that pork belly in. And I'm just going to use my spoon just to spread it out so that it's not touching each other and that it's just kind of it's on the rack, but each piece has some room around it. It's not an exact science or anything like that. It just kind of throwing it together. All right. So this is ready to go in the oven. I think I remember that it's not supposed to be covered. So we're going to go with that. And if I end up having to pull it out and cover it, I will let you know that I covered it. All right, so this is going to pop in the oven for 3 hours. I'm going to set my timer. All right, and we'll be back in 3 hours to show you the next step in the process of making keto burnt ends. All right, let's see what time it is. It is 4 o'clock and I'm just now starting to feel hungry. The sad thing is I've got about an hour and 15 minutes before the pork belly is done. So normally I'm not an advocate of snacks, but in light of the fact that I actually do want to eat pork belly and a full meal today, I have decided to stop and have something to eat to put into my belly. So I have one of my favorite Epic venison bars. What I like about these is it's all pretty much meat. It's clean ingredients. There's, I believe, 1 gram of carbs. Let me double check. Yeah, there's 1 gram of carb in this. It includes venison, sea salt, encapsulated lactic acid, water, black pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, and cultured celery powder. So that's all that is in this. So I'm just going to eat this and drink another glass of water. That should take the edge off my hunger that I'm feeling right now, but still allow me to be somewhat hungry so that once the pork belly's done, I can go ahead and eat that. I'll be joining you guys back in just what will be instantly for you, but it's going to be about 20 minutes for me. I am working on my paper. I have it all outlined and started, and I'm about a quarter of the way done. So hopefully by time dinner's actually done tonight, I'll be done with my paper. All right, so I'll check back in with you guys in just a few moments. All right, so I'm back with the next part of the pork belly. I just pulled it out of the oven. Let me get my other oven mitt so I can show you guys what it looks like. It smells amazing, and I'm hungry. Still hungry. That bar I just ate just helped a tiny bit, but look at that amazing deliciousness. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this pork belly out of this pan. It says to put it in a casserole dish, which I don't actually own anymore. We went from a big house, 2,500 square feet, to 900 square feet in a tiny ass kitchen. So I don't have a lot of what I used to have. So I have a pie plate. Yes, I know I don't eat pie, but I still kept it because it was a really expensive dish. So I'm going to take the pork belly out, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get it in my pie plate, and then we're going to top it with some barbecue sauce. The recipe calls for a 1/4 cup of barbecue sauce, but I have discovered that I own exactly 1 measuring cup. I own a 1 cup measuring cup. I don't know how that happened. I don't know where my other measuring cups went. Apparently they have grown legs and disappeared because nobody can figure it out. And I know when I moved, I had a full set of measuring cups. So clearly I'm going to have to fix my deficit in measuring cups here shortly. Let's go ahead and get this all out. I'm so tempted just to try one of these pieces right now, but it still has another hour left to cook. All right, so those are now in my bowl. I'm gonna grab a large spoon so that I can stir in some sauce. We do have the G Hughes here. This is the sweet and spicy. I'm just gonna kind of eyeball a 1/4 cup. Just wanna make sure it gets a nice good coating without being too much. So stir that all together. Oh, this smells so amazing. All right, that's nice and coated now. And so I'll show you in just a second. It's not too thick on the sauce, and it's not like there's a heavy coating of sauce either on the bottom. So I'm gonna get this all laid out in a flat layer. And there's what it looks like now in the pan. It does say to go ahead and cover with a foil. So this is your warning that it's going to get noisy with foil. But it is what it is. So I'm going to cover that. And then I'm going to stick it back in the oven for 30 minutes. Once that 30 minutes is over, I'm going to take it out, or I'm going to take the foil off, and then it'll cook for another 30 minutes, so it has another hour to cook. All right, once it's completely done, I will show you what it looks like. All right, well, the pork belly is done. It's completed its whole 4 hours. This is what it looks like. I am absolutely starving at this point. I have not tried this yet, so I will take a bite real quick to give you a try. But I think for dinner tonight, Matt and I are going to make some eggs, either fried or scrambled, to go along with it, just because it's easy and it'll go decently. So let's give this pork belly a try. I'm going to find a little piece. Ooh, it's soft and juicy. There's just something so special about pork belly. especially when you cook it slow and low. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. This is my favorite way to do pork belly. So again, I'll link the recipe that I used as my guideline in the show notes of this episode or this little vlog. All right, so I'm almost done with my paper. I did get distracted by a couple of phone calls. My daughter called, and then my best friend slash business partner for our nonprofit called, and we had some nonprofit stuff to talk about, which was fun. So I did get distracted on that. I might continue this vlog into tomorrow, but I will let you know either way. Either I'll close it out this evening once my paper's done, or we'll just carry on tomorrow and we'll see how much I actually manage to eat tomorrow. I think I'm going to do about half this pork belly and attempt to do 3 eggs. We'll see if it all goes down. Either way, it'll be fun, and I'm glad that I'm actually hungry enough to eat it. All right, I will check in soon. All right, so for dinner, we ended up doing the pork belly. I had about a third of what I put on my plate, which I put half the pork belly on my plate. And then, or maybe it was closer to 2/3. It was probably closer to 2/3. It was just so delicious. And then last night I made meatloaf, and I ended up putting a big piece of that on my plate instead of eggs, just to get rid of leftovers. So I had about half my piece of meatloaf and about half of my pork belly. So not a huge meal. It was pretty small, all things considered. And it is now about 9:30, so I'm noticing my eyes are very glossy as I'm tired. It's going to be close to me going to bed. Tomorrow is another day off. It's our typical day off, but I do have to be up early because my weights are getting delivered in the morning, and I'm super, super excited because I ordered them a couple weeks ago. I ordered a set of dumbbells that includes 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 pounds. So that's going to help me with my next goal of putting on muscle. So I hope that you enjoyed this little bit of a vlog and just what it was like for me just spending an entire day in the house. As you can see behind me, I do collect a lot of yarn. I have knitting on that side, I have weaving on that side, and then at the very bottom where you can't see, that is all my spinning fibers. And up at the top above my head is where I keep my extra equipment. So like my drum carder and my sewing machine. But I have to fit it somewhere, so it fits in the bedroom. I don't have a dresser. I know, I'm a little odd. But, like I said earlier, I went down from 2,500 square feet to 900 square feet. And priorities, it was more important for me to keep yarn versus having a dresser. In my closet, I have a little organization system that's got like 3 drawers in it. So that keeps like undergarments and pajamas and accessories. And then I just hang everything else up, so it works. All right, well, it's been a fun day. And I'm just a day spending at the house and what I typically do and what I typically get done on a day off. So it was, hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, let me know and give this a thumbs up and a like. You can feel free to comment and follow and share and all those wonderful things as I work to build my community. I will talk to you guys again soon.